Welcome to Farming for Health, where Farmer Lee Jones and I talk with leaders in food, farming, and health and wellness to spread knowledge and inspire a plant-forward future, starting now. Welcome to the Farming for Health podcast. Today, I'm so excited to be joined by my friend, Coach Tara Garrison. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's amazing here.
Yes, I'm so excited to have you in person at the farm. And we're here at the Farmer Jones Farm Market. And we've had a really fun day touring around the farm. But after being on Tara's podcast, she said, sometime I want to come out to the farm. And I was like, yes, let's do it. And so we made it happen.
Thank you so much for making it happen. I can't recommend it enough. My mind is blown. I have 100 more questions since I got here. I can't believe the level of commitment to excellence out here. If you can ever make it out here, at least even to the farm store, I can't recommend it enough. It's a paradigm shifting experience to see how much you guys care about the quality of the plants, the health of the people, the health of the soil, just even the way you all care about each other and the people who work here. It's really cool what you've created. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And it really is a family here. And that's what I'm like, welcome to the family. It's nice to meet other like-minded people who love and support regenerative agriculture, which is what we do. And I think it really is starting all with the soil. And today we toured the soil building and, went out and looked in the fields, and it's just really grounding, I think, to be here on the farm and be able to taste the vegetables.
Well, and just to hear the excitement in all of your voices, look what happened when we put straw under these tomatoes. Look what they grew so much bigger and better, and they taste, it's like, you can tell that it's a passion project for all of you on top of just what you do professionally, which I super resonate with. So it's just it's my people. And I hope I say that because I hope people know, I probably they do if they're listening to this podcast, but the commitment to helping the people who partake of these plants thrive is just unreal, so just behind the scenes, they care. And so it's been cool to see.
Well, thank you. And so I kind of wanted to start off just telling people about yourself. How did you get into being a coach? How did it all begin? What's your story?
Yeah. So thanks for asking. So for me, I grew up standard American diet, just like pretty much everybody else, in the 80s and 90s. That's just how it was. At least in my world it was. And so it was, we didn't have a lot of money, so it was a lot of processed foods, fast food. Both my parents had an interest in health, but it just kind of would go by the wayside a lot. And it was just pretty unhealthy diet. And that transitioned into my adult life too. So I was always kind of overweight because it was a typical model of eating a lot of not nutrient dense, high caloric, high processed foods. And so, I had 4 kids. After my 4th, I was just overweight and couldn't figure it out. And I was even running marathons, full marathons, and I was still overweight. And during that journey, I picked up weightlifting, and I kind of got into this almost bodybuilder-ish lifestyle. And a big part of that lifestyle is eating real food, right? Yeah. So I made I was like, I know I built muscle. I want to show it now. And so I drastically changed how I ate. And even though I wouldn't consider the bodybuilding lifestyle the most healthy lifestyle in the world, for me, it was a transition from fake processed foods to real food. Yeah. All of a sudden I was eating huge vegetable stir fries with eggs and potatoes and sweet potatoes and chicken and, maybe Greek yogurt or a protein shake or a protein bar were the only processed foods I was eating all of a sudden. And I got a body composition change for sure. I went from probably around 40% body fat, I don't know, to I got all the way down to 11% body fat, which I don't recommend. I just was overachieving and really going for it, but that's a really drastic change in my body composition. But the part that is what brings me here today was how different I felt in my mind. And so I always say that getting healthy was my gateway drug to personal awakening. It truly was. It felt as I look back at that now, I do think eating more protein for me and what I know now, the tyrosine that builds dopamine, I feel like my dopamine levels became higher, which will cause you to feel a little bit more alert, awake, conscious, driven, confidence, all of those things. And it obviously paired with consistent exercise.
Yeah.
And then all the veggies, because I was living off veggies because they were the smartest thing to eat if you're trying to lose weight. It was like they're full of nutrients and they're mostly fiber, low calorie. Like I can have all of these I want. And so my body just got flooded with nutrients, and all of this garbage started going by the wayside. And it truly, I mean, I made a radical life change. If you saw pictures of me from before, you would not recognize me as a human being, either in my physical form or my energy, And so it was unbelievable to me that your whole entire reality in this life, in this existence, could be that different based off the foods you're eating and exercise. So I originally had planned on being a Spanish teacher. I have a degree in Spanish. And in my early 30s, I was like, nope. I mean, I love Spanish and I love teaching, but this matters. Like if I can help like get a little bit closer to this miraculous life change that I just experienced, I would love to help however I can. And so that's how I went into training and then nutrition and then holistic nutrition and, biohacking, some of the deeper modalities, and then mindset. So my quest is basically like, how good does this get? And how can I help other people discover how good does this get as well?
Yeah. Well, and I feel like your energy is just contagious. Like being around you, it's hard not to like smile and just feel motivated. And likewise. I think it's just amazing to see you and see how you live and see your energy and how, hear your story of how you've transformed over time, but also how you are able to kind of share that with other people and work with different people across all different sectors, but really high performers. And what draws you to working with that high performer crowd?
I think the reason I like working with high performers, and I love helping anyone however I can, but the reason I'm drawn to high performers is because high performers generally, in one outlet of their life, whatever that high performance is in, they have done some mindset work. They have learned some of the principles of the universe, I'll put it that way, of what needs to happen in order to achieve success in an area. So if I can take that, whether it's business or I've worked with guys coming out of the NFL, they're incredibly easy to work with. It's so nice because they have developed the skill of being coachable. They have developed, they're familiar with the discomfort of, wow, I don't really feel like doing this right now, and I'm going to do it anyway. Wow, this is uncomfortable. How am I going to manage this uncomfortable situation? Oh, well, I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to do it. So it's enjoyable to work with people, for me personally, who not only have developed that skill that I can help translate that over. It's okay, well, what would you do in business right now? It's okay, I would ask somebody for help. Yep. And so that's kind of enjoyable, but also it's because they're seekers. Yeah. And I'm a seeker, and I love working with people who are they're hungry, they're curious. Yes. They're what is out there available to me in this abundant universe that could make my life better or help me bring more goodness to the world. It's a resonant energy with me, and so it's fun for me to work with those people. And
that's amazing.
I have to add too, because if somebody has, let's say I'm working with a high performance business leader, it's really fun for me if they're not feeling good and they're already performing at those levels and serving all these people and providing jobs for people. If I can help them feel a little bit better, the ripple effect of that is bigger, And so it's kind of nice. I'm wow, if you're already bringing so much goodness to the world and you're folate deficient and B12 deficient and, have gut inflammation and, all of these mood issues, what's possible for you if we get you feeling better? So that's the other reason, is because the ripple effect is kind of rewarding sometimes. With those people. Being
able to optimize their health is oh my gosh, exponential as far as the people you can reach.
Yeah.
So I know you are kind of big in the keto community and have written a book about keto.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about how you got into keto, and then tell us a little bit about your book?
Sure. Yeah, so keto, I will just be totally real. I was dating a guy who was kind of one of the front runners of getting keto out in certain circuits of the nutrition world. And so this was right after I had my health transformation and all of that. And I kind of felt like I had things on lock, to be honest. I wasn't tracking food anymore. I was like, I had just qualified for the Boston Marathon. I was lean and strong and just felt like, I was like, okay, I figured this whole nutrition fitness game out. But I was curious about keto because of more of like my biohacking side, which biohacking is basically just how can I modify the environment inside and outside of me to get different health outcomes, right? And so keto is a way to do that. And I was interested in the brain benefits of that. I was interested in like, hey, can my body run off ketones? I don't really know if it can. I don't know. I've never tried this before. So I think my curious side, I wanted to see like, all right, let's see what all the fuss is about. Let's try it out. So I did keto strict for a year. I actually trained for and ran the Boston Marathon in ketosis, which for me, even though keto can be very beneficial for endurance athletes. I ran it a very hot year and they wouldn't let me have my camel pack full of ketones and salt, which is very important. You need salt like really bad on keto. And so because of the bombings, I didn't know that. So I had a horrible experience. I wouldn't recommend running a marathon dehydrated no matter what diet you're on, you know, but the training for it was good. But anyway, I did it strict for a year. In my personal experience on keto, I lost muscle and gained body fat. Now, part of that is because I wanted to gain a little bit body fat. I found out I was only 11%, but I was gaining it faster than I wanted to. And I was doing DEXA scans where you can scan your body composition, and I was losing muscle and even optimizing all the things that I would normally do for other clients, like using leucine to protect muscles, eating more protein, you know, stuff like that. I was just like, after a while, I did get the brain benefit. I felt amazing. I felt like a superhuman. I kept joking. I'm like a vampire or something. I can see everything, you know. It was just really, that was amazing, the brain, you know, but from a body comp and eventually even enjoyment of food after a while started to go down. I was like, I just want some strawberries. Is that too much to ask? Can I have an apple, please? Like, it got to the point where I was like, why am I doing this anymore? You know, like I don't necessarily have a metabolic need. I'm not trying to lose weight, and so I started to reincorporate carbs. And just if anyone's curious on the body composition side of things, I went from 11% to 18% on keto, and then just bringing carbs back in, not trying to, I went back down to 12.8%. My athletic performance went up, and I just felt better personally. So I always loved the brain feeling of being in ketosis, and I have some Alzheimer's risk genes, and I do think that there's a connection there. But from just overall general life enjoyment, athletic performance, body composition, all those things, I do better with carbs. And so I figured that out in the peak of the keto frenzy. That's what I like to call it. So 2018 was like a very popular time to be a keto specialist. I'll put it that way, right? So it's just left and right. I'm just getting hit up for clients like crazy. I mean, it was a frenzy. And I just was like, okay, I'm going to be honest here, you know? And so I started speaking up, and I was like, keto's cool. And especially if you're insulin resistant, if you have a lot of body fat to lose, if you have migraines, if you have epilepsy, neurological diseases, you know, high blood sugar, type 2 diabetes, definitely, you know, if you have all those things, like keto is amazing, an amazingly powerful dietary intervention for a lot of reasons. For me, I knew that I didn't need to do that anymore, but the energy in the keto community was, this is the best way for all human beings to eat no matter what. And like, if you have half a brain, you know that. And I was like, wait a minute. Whoa, no, what's going on here? Right. So I started to speak up. I was like, well, actually, I'm eating carbs again, and I'm like feeling better. And the sweet potato is real good, y'all. And I actually lost weight, and my athletic performance has gone up, you know? And so it was kind of scary to speak up because I was so involved in the keto community. Yeah. But I was like, I have to tell the truth. And because I was seeing people get kind of like, they were scared of carbohydrates. They were scared that they had heard these rumors that, like, you know, regardless of your blood sugar, you eat a carb, you get fat. Carbs are just stored as body fat. You know, it's just kind of misinformation like that. Yeah. So I started speaking up, and then eventually, after a while, like with that messaging, I got an offer to write short-term keto from Victory Belt, and just kind of talk about that and give people real information about, like, how does this impact your serotonin or your dopamine, you know, GABA, some of your neurotransmitters? How might, you know, what are some just things to consider why keto is great? My little catchphrase is do keto, not forever.
Yeah.
Right? I do think it's helpful for like most people to do a little phase of keto because we have so much food. We don't run into that system in our body a lot where we run out of incoming carbohydrates and we kind of need to use our fat stores for fuel. So it's a good metabolic upgrade, I would say, that a lot of us could use, but I'm not dogmatic about it. There are some people that will benefit long-term, you know, type 2 diabetes, epilepsy stuff like that.
Sure.
But for the most part, I was just really wanting to get rid of the dogma around this. That's kind of my keto story.
I love that. And I so appreciate people willing to speak up and say like, hey, this isn't for everyone. And I know we talked about mindful eating last time and like intuitive eating. And I think there's a piece of that there because when you're listening to your body and feeling like, hey, like everyone's saying this is what I need to do, but like in my body, this doesn't feel right.
You nailed it. I cannot tell you. So then I kind of became the person that people who are keto who think maybe they don't want to do keto. I became that person, right?
Right.
And I can't tell you, all the time I was like, okay, my new job title is I give you scientific reasons to do what your intuition was telling you needed to do all along.
Yeah.
Truly. I can't tell you how many times I run across that in coaching. They're like, I feel like maybe, even with doing keto, I feel like maybe I should do keto. And I'm looking at their blood sugar and their HbA1c. I'm like, yeah, and their inflammation markers. I'm like, yeah, that would be a really smart move. And here's why. But they already kind of felt that, you know, or I feel like I need to bring carbs back in. And I'm like, okay, well, you have all the signs of low serotonin. So like, that's probably an intuitive nudge for a reason, you know, and they're like, oh, okay. You know, so carbs help with serotonin. So anyway.
And that's, I think, the other thing you brought up, there's so many things you said that I'm like, yes, let's talk about that. But last night we talked about salt. So can you please tell us your experience with salt and kind of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. So salt is a huge element of the ketogenic diet, and most people who do keto know about salt. So I'll share from that perspective. I'll also share that I do run hair mineral analysis on all of my clients. And so I have seen in a small amount of people, I run DNA analysis on clients too. So I have seen there are certain genes we look at. Now, take this all with a grain of salt because like DNA is an emerging field. We have epigenetics. You can have different gene expressions based on your lifestyle and even your thoughts, truly, you know? But there are genes we can look at to see if people might be sensitive to salt. And I have noticed being in people's DNA and their hair mineral analysis, a very small amount of people that I've worked with, they do have a salt sensitivity risk gene. And then when they do their hair mineral analysis, their sodium is high sometimes, right? So it's just like, it's not dangerously high. It's just, you want your minerals to be balanced. And so it's like, okay, you probably don't need to go heavy on the salt. That being said, so there's my like disclaimer. I'm not like, you know, saying everyone needs tons of salt because there are a few people, and I do recommend getting something like a hair mineral analysis with a coach or naturopathic doctor or someone who can do something like that, just if you're curious.
Yeah.
But for everybody else who doesn't have like a genetic issue or possibly like super high inflammation, hard artery, you know, you're really, really unhealthy. Everyone else, what we have found in the research, the more salt, the better. So salt is one of the main electrolytes. And in case people are wondering, like sometimes people are like, what's a mineral and what's electrolyte? Like I'm confused. Are all minerals electrolytes? So electrolytes are certain minerals that when they hit water, they actually give off electric charge. So think of sodium as electricity in your body. And wow, because I've gone so much into this, you know, I told you I love Redmond Real Salt. I will definitely give them a shout out. I love that company. They're such a great, beautiful company based out of Utah where I live. And they have all their trace minerals still intact in their salt. And what I have found through this process of coaching many people is so often people think that they're just having brain fog. I mean, of course there are other reasons for this, but I have seen this very much. It's like, oh, I have like low athletic performance, or I have brain fog, or like my energy is kind of low, and they're literally just dehydrated. And when I say dehydrated, I don't mean just water. There also has to be minerals. Like when you die of dehydration, you don't die because there was no water in your body. You die because of mineral imbalance.
Yeah.
Right. So like, it's actually the mineral. I mean, the water's important too, definitely. But like the minerals are a huge part of that, you know,
well, and even just like cardiac function, like you think of like potassium, magnesium, like all of those minerals that are so important just in your like the beating of your heart, like
Right.
the basics.
The electricity.
Yeah. And if those get out of balance, like your body's going to do everything it can to pull minerals from everywhere else before like you would notice an imbalance.
Right.
And
like your bones.
Yeah. Right. And
Right.
so I think it's so like, it's fascinating to consider. And we see it in plants too. Like we'll see the older leaves will turn yellow and they're pulling minerals up to like those top leaves. And so
Makes
it's
sense.
so interesting to think of how we can walk around like in a state of depleted minerals, right? And like not optimally functioning, just like plants.
Yes. And I will say there's a guy named James DiNicolantonio that wrote a book called The Salt Fix.
I love that.
Do you love that book?
That totally changed my view on salt.
I love how he explains that we have built-in salt receptor. We have like a test. We have a built-in test if you need sodium or not. And I love this. So he says that your taste buds on your tongue, if you need salt, salty things will taste good. And once you're good, they will literally stop tasting good. Right. And I'm sure we've all had those moments where you're like outside playing sports, whatever, and you're just like, salt, give it to me, you know? Or other times it's like you've been inside, it's winter, and it's like, dude, I don't want anything salty right now. You probably just don't need it, you know? And so I'm trying to deliver this message as like non-dogmatically as possible, but like give salt a chance, because there's been so much programming, like not good information, that like all salt is just going to give you a heart attack and you're going to die no matter what. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so many of these people, their lights are off. Like their electricity's not on all the way because they're afraid of salt. When we have so much research, like please look into it or read Dr. James DiNicolantonio's book, The Salt Fix. Like look into it and reconsider, you know, and then obviously check with your health professional on if you really want to test your levels. And last thing I got to say, sorry. The fact that some of your vegetables that I saw today from your lab had higher sodium, I'm like, that makes total sense. I was like, no wonder I'm having to like just supplement salt like crazy, because the plants don't have as much as they probably were intended to by nature. And
you think of how sodium enhances the flavor of foods too. Like, you know, having flavorful vegetables, I think it's so important and like changes your experience. And so having those minerals higher, again, like enhances that flavor.
Your tomatoes. So they gave me this beautiful plate of heirloom tomatoes, or in my little place I'm staying here, and I was like, oh my gosh. And then and I had been telling her about my love of salt on the way, right? So, you know, and there were two sweet little like finishing salt and kosher salt. And so after you left, I was like, oh, I'm eating those tomatoes, right? So I'm about to dig into the tomatoes, and I was fully planning. I mean, normally I would be like dipping, like bite it in half and like dip it in salt, like a salt lick, you know? And I bit one, and I was like, oh, there's no way I want extra salt on these. I don't, it's plenty salty. They were so, I was joking that I binge ate tomatoes last night. I was like, oh my gosh, but they didn't need salt. They tasted so good by themselves. And I think it's honestly made me kind of sad being here tasting all of your guys' vegetables, because I'm like, this is why people don't like vegetables, because they don't taste the way they're supposed to. They actually taste so good when and you're exactly right. The mineral content, especially the salt content, is going to impact that.
And I think there's so many elements that impact flavor, and that's really what we're thinking about, you know, when we grow the plants, and the healthy plants are going to have more flavor. So but the other thing I wanted to talk about with keto is I see people all over the spectrum as far as vegetables. And like, you know, can I have vegetables on keto? Can I not? Is it keto out of all sorts of little packages, like a processed keto? Is it like a Whole Foods? Is it more like carnivore? Like, can you please speak to vegetables and keto and like your thoughts on that?
Sure. Okay. So where do I begin? There are lots of little fields, little camps inside the keto world, right? And so basically, I just will explain if you're not familiar with keto. It's basically you restrict carbohydrates so much that your body is no longer running off carbohydrates, glucose, as its primary fuel source. You're always going to have some glucose, but so you take your body fat or fat that you eat and you convert it through your liver into ketones, which actually I think that might happen in some other places too. It's kind of interesting, but you're running off fat instead of carbs. Okay. So there is like a carnivore community, right? And so they only eat meat. I have seen positive health outcomes in a lot of people who do this. I personally only ever recommend that for someone if they have like SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, or some sort of really intensive gut issue that we're just basically trying to take out any fibers that could possibly upset or feed certain bacteria. We're just taking them all out, and they're gonna, eat meat, which has good bioavailability, meaning you could absorb the nutrients from the meat. Well, you need to supplement organ meats and things like that. But like as an intervention is how I see carnivore, not, and there's some dogma in that community for sure of like, this is how humans are supposed to eat and plants are bad and plants are trying to kill you. And I just can't get down with that way of thinking personally. I feel like it's a little bit, not the whole story,
And I think it matters so much what the animals are eating too. And sometimes I think that's glossed over, like in our research in so many different things. But like, are you eating meat that has been grain fed primarily? And again, we were talking today about like how minerals have dropped in vegetables and plants, like commercially grown or conventionally grown. And so I think about that too. If you're like well-meaning carnivore and focus in on animals that aren't eating like a diverse diet, just like a person not eating a diverse diet, you're going to end up with different mineral deficiencies that way. I don't know if you've
I think most of the
that.
Carnivore proponents are big on eating animals that were well raised. I think that they do a good job of that messaging. But you're going to have somebody that's like, oh, I just take the bun off my McDonald's hamburger and I just eat that every day. And it happens on keto, and it happens on vegan, and it happens on all dietary approaches. So can't push nutrient density and the quality of the food that you're eating enough. Like, figure out a way to make it happen. You know what I mean? Get a side job if you have to, like, figure it out. It's worth it, but, not to shame anybody who sometimes it's okay if you sometimes, I sometimes eat a chicken and hamburger at a restaurant that wasn't regeneratively raised. I'm not, no shame in that. It's just as much as you can try to give yourself the good stuff. Right. But, in terms of the veggies in the keto community, I am definitely a fan of vegetables on keto. Now, there's always little, special cases if you have a lot of gut inflammation or autoimmunity or certain food sensitivities. Like, I'm not talking to you right now, and that's your unique path. I'm just saying in general, if you have good, healthy gut health, and you're just wanting to do a ketogenic diet, I mean, this is such a powerful way to get so many nutrients in. And I'm personally a huge fan of fiber. Especially for if you're trying to lose weight. Fiber is incredibly helpful on restoring insulin or maintaining insulin sensitivity, right? And on top of it, fiber is turned into a gel that's really slow digesting. So it keeps you, or there's the insoluble ones, but both of them are going to fill you up and keep you full for longer. So you're not just overeating, right? And on top of it, you'll make butyrate in your gut, which helps with, the short chain fatty acids help with mental health, right? So as long as your gut can tolerate veggies, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're one of the most nutritional powerhouses that we have available to us. And in terms of body composition and losing body weight, they are so helpful for that. And you're not searching for nutrients. I do feel like a lot of hunger is like, my body just doesn't have what it needs. So it's like, go try again.
There's such an epidemic of hidden hunger. Like, we don't realize it because you're still eating and consuming enough calories, but you're not getting the things you need. And then you have like that kind of unknown, like, it's what like do this, I want?
I'm not even hungry, but I just feel like I need more food kind of thing. And that anybody who's switched over to a nutrient dense lifestyle with us is like, you have that moment with yourself where you're like, oh, wow. Okay, so when I eat this kind of stuff, I'm like good and I feel good and I'm like satiated and like got it, And so, fiber, veggies, I'm just a huge fan. So as long as you're, if you're having certain vegetables that your gut doesn't agree with, obviously avoid, but then find the ones that you can. That's my personal and professional opinion. And then last thing I'll share is like carbs. So some vegetables are higher in carbohydrates than others, right? So these carrots are going to be higher in sugar than these leafy greens. All right. So if you're super sensitive, like you have really high blood sugar maybe, or you're just not able to make ketones, you're going to want to probably avoid some of the higher sugar, like tomatoes and carrots and things in the beginning while your body adapts. Just kind of stick with leafy greens because your body is going to try to stay your body doesn't want to go in ketosis, probably, right? It's not used to that. It's like, nope, we run off glucose. And so if you're giving yourself just a little bit too much glucose to block that, it can be a problem. So just a heads up on that if anybody's going to try keto, you know, like maybe you omit the carrots and the tomatoes, and you know, there's tons of lists if you just Google like keto vegetables or, you know, high carb vegetables. Like there's not that many, but peppers, tomatoes, carrots, or, you know, but you can have, most people do great with leafy greens, broccoli, cauliflower, you know, asparagus, zucchini, squash, all those things. And you can make some yummy stuff on keto with those as well.
And that's what I like worry about sometimes when you see people like totally avoiding vegetables as a category and you're like, wait, but you're missing like so many things. Like, yeah, fiber's not sexy, but it's amazing. And
it'll make you sexy though.
Yeah. That's right. That's the next t-shirt. So, yeah, but like fiber's amazing for all the reasons you listed, plus like the female hormone health benefits of like healthy detoxification, healthy elimination of hormones, like hormone metabolites. But I think, you know, fiber's so underappreciated. And what a better way to get it than by eating it versus having to take like little capsules of like 2 grams of fiber at a time or less.
Yeah, you get to enjoy food.
Yeah. And that's, I always say there's such like an innate wisdom to being able to consume food in its whole form that's like recently been harvested and really like energetically alive. I think there's something so different about that in your body.
100%. Couldn't agree more. And I will highlight real quick, my grandma died of breast cancer when she was 40 years old. So I'll be 40 next month. We both.
Yeah, we both are. We're birthday.
We're birthday twins. And I have a genetic mutation that causes, it's called a slow COMT, that causes, I don't metabolize estrogens as quickly. And so cruciferous vegetables are a helpful way to help with for me to not become estrogen dominant.
Yeah.
And so for me, like, and even just everything's easier when I eat cruciferous vegetables. I feel better. I have better energy levels. My weight maintenance is easy. Like it's just great. So, you know, everyone's different, but man, like I just had to share that for like women. If you have estrogen dominance, you know, as long as you don't have gut issues or something, I can't recommend cruciferous vegetables enough. They are like life-changing.
I am the same way. What's your favorite way to get in cruciferous vegetables?
Oh, what isn't my favorite way? I mean, it's funny too, right? Because I have that genetic mutation and I like love all cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. I love like purple cabbage, like shred up broccoli slaw, like, oh, you know what's a favorite? This one's kind of fun. People might like. My sister gave me this idea. You just bake cauliflower. So you put some parchment paper on a pan. I just like, you can douse with olive oil or spray olive oil or avocado oil on on cauliflower. Bake it at like 450 until it starts to get crispy. And then I take the Primal Kitchen. Do you know them?
Yeah.
They have like avocado oil based mayos and dressings and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's their buffalo sauce. So it's like these like buffalo wings. I stir it up and then I put them back in there and they get that's good. So,
that sounds super good.
Brussels sprouts with bacon and butter and some dates chopped up in there. Fry them up till they're almost burnt.
It's
so good.
So good. My husband used to tell me he hated Brussels sprouts, but his mom would boil them and they're like all gross. Mushy and gross.
That's gross.
And when it like became a thing that you would like bake Brussels sprouts, it like or roast them.
Right.
It totally like changed Brussels sprouts, I think, for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And now they're like, I feel like it's like way more normal to like have Brussels sprouts, and you see them on all the menus.
Right.
And
it's like a delicacy.
So
People
delicious.
want them. Yeah. I always say, if you don't like vegetables or your kids don't like vegetables, accept the challenge that you need to learn how to cook them, make them taste better. Like when my kids don't like vegetables, I'm like, all right, I need to learn how to make that taste better. So because when I make them well, and it's even like Brussels sprouts, stuff like that, or like fresh green beans cooked up in bacon with butter and like the right seasoning, they don't even want anything else on their plate. They're just like, they're like gobbling them, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun. You can learn to cook. You can I'm like, do you drive a car? Okay, if you can learn how to drive a car, you can learn how to cook food, you know? And it's actually fun if you have like the right mindset, that kind of mindset of like, I'm exploring. You know?
Yeah. Well, speaking of mindset, and I know you're busy like as a business owner, as a coach, like as a mother of 4 children, all of the things. what do you say when people say like, I don't have time to be healthier, to make like healthy choices or to cook? Like where do you start?
So I can be a little bit in your face with people sometimes, but it comes out of love. But I'm kind of like messing with them a little bit. But when they say I don't have time, I challenge them to replace that with, it doesn't matter to me. Because it's like,
that changes it.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't have time to work out. Oh, working out doesn't matter to me. Being healthy doesn't matter to me. Cooking doesn't matter, because it's true. Or at least it's not a priority, is another phrase that I use a lot. It's like when we say, oh, I wish I could, but I don't have time. It literally is not a priority to you. It isn't. And when we accept that, that honesty reality check is what's needed for us to choose from a neutral place. Right. Because if we do this, it's almost like a self-abuse game that we do. It's like, oh, I want that. Oh, but I can't because of blah, 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 blah. Like all that does is like destroy your energy and make you feel bad about yourself. And like, you're not doing a good enough job. But if you just say like, that's not a priority to me right now, you might choose. Yeah, it's not. Okay. Well, at least now I'm good with myself.
Right.
Or, okay, I don't like the way that feels, that honesty slap in the face, and it's like, okay, I'm just not prioritizing this. Let me change my verbiage there. Yeah. So I don't have time we all have the same 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
So you choose, and I had a mindset coach, his name's Tony Child. He's a friend of mine now too, but I love what he says. He says that you value, people will say, he always asks, what do people say they value? What's always the answer? It's friends, family. God, country, family, friends, it's one of those things, right? And he challenges people and says, no, what you value is what you spend your time and your money on. So look at your bank account and look at your calendar, and that is what you value, and it's true.
Right.
So I love that from him, and just sharing that, like when you say I don't have time, it's like, well, just be real with yourself about what you value, and it might change over time or whatever, but that honesty, it's the honesty and acceptance is like where we get centered with ourselves, so yeah.
And I know we were talking about earlier today, like kind of like life-changing experiences, how like hitting a low can just like break you open. Can you talk about kind of that sort of mindset and like that sort of journey and like,
yeah. I mean, I shared this a bunch of times, so I'll share again. But for me personally, like I got rocked to my bottom, like dark night of the soul, like twice in a 1.5 year period. Right. So I basically, what had happened is I, for me personally, the religion that I had been raised in that completely controlled my life, I had discovered things about it that it was no longer true for me anymore. And to make that decision for myself, I had to say goodbye to everyone that I knew. And I also got divorced shortly after that. So it was like a nuke on my life, right?
Yeah.
And that was scary. And then after that, I got in a very unhealthy relationship because I hadn't done any mindset work yet. So I kind of just filled this religion will tell me what to do with this narcissistic guy will tell me what to do. And I just literally did whatever he said. And at the end of that, I lost my life savings. I went through a bankruptcy because I let him have full control over, finances, just tell me everything to do. I had nowhere to live. I had not a penny to my name, and I had 4 kids. I lost child support and alimony too after being a stay-at-home mom for over a decade, after only 1.5 years, in the work world. I had to ask my ex-husband to take my kids for a little bit. I had to stay with a friend for 4 months. So it was like rock bottom, not to mention just all the emotional processing of all of that while I'm trying to like stay afloat. And for me, that's where I started my business from. And this, like, honestly, this was not even that long ago. This was in 2018. Right. And so for me, hitting that low and literally actually like not having help, like in my physical realm, except for like a little bit from friends, it woke me up to a place where the way I look at it is I'm a little bird, a baby bird on a branch, and I just jumped and I either have to fly or die. Like that is literally the only options here. So I chose fly as hard as I can. And I share that because like it's been straight magic what has happened in my life. Like I'm running a thriving coaching company. I'm able to do experiences like this. I wrote a book. I'm speaking. It's been just effortless, like nonstop, huge amount of effort of diving into my own healing, my own mindset, my own, like just constantly just like in a loving way though, just watching and like learning, evolving and growing. And what happens when you're in that dark place is you're so desperate to get out of it. You're wide open.
Yeah.
And so that's what we were talking about before. It's just like a lot of times, I know it doesn't feel like it when you're in it. It's scary and it's hard and it's like, oh my gosh, I can't get out of bed, or, you know, you want to fly to the opposite side of the world because you're in so much fight or flight, you know, but I have just seen it so many times and experienced myself that like, if you can trust and be open to what like the universe or God or however you see that, like, is bringing in your path, and you just keep saying yes and you just trust that process, magic happens, you know? Yeah. And so, I mean, that's kind of like your guys' story with back way long ago, decades ago, when they went, you know, they had to start over.
Yeah. And lost the farm and all from scratch. Yeah,
right.
It's just that resilience. Like,
the resilience and also the openness, because you're desperate, kind of.
Yeah.
and the universe or God, however you see it, is like, there we go. There's an opening. Okay, put them in their purpose. Okay, cool. Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah. And I think that is just brilliant. And I think it's such, like, it's amazing to see how you took that opportunity to just go upward. And that's one of the things I admire so much about you. There's so many things, but I think your story and what you have created is just awesome.
Thanks. So. I'm co-creating with a source bigger than me. So that's how I try to operate.
And I think your openness too, to like learn and expand and like just to be open to what the universe is bringing in is like, I think there's so much to learn from that. Cause you know, I think there's messages and information all around us, but like, what are we open to and what are we willing to like allow ourselves to believe and like do?
Yeah.
And how do you get rid of, like, I guess this is more of a question than a statement, but like, how did you get rid of that? Like, how did you get out of kind of the confines of like limiting beliefs, right?
Oh man. A lot of methods, I'd say, but, investing in myself like crazy with mindset coaches, mentors, you know, during that time period when it was scary and I was just starting my business. Like I was definitely pushing the edge, but I had so much trust. I had so much trust in like these intuitive feelings. I had followed them enough to see that my life gets way better when I listen to those nudges and gets way worse when I ignore them, that I trusted enough. But there were times that I was investing almost everything I had into coaches, mentors, workshops, certifications, conferences, like, but I just knew when I had that gut feeling deep inside of me, it was just like, yes, I was like, okay, I trust that, you know? And so those experiences, they're life-changing, you know? So like if we stay in our house with our same materials and our same routine and our same friends, and that's the only thing we're ever exposed to, how do you expect to change your mindset or the way you see life? So like even a book, if you can't afford to travel somewhere to a conference or whatever, even a book for $20, you can change your entire way you see life. Like we think about salt differently now because of, you know, James. Thanks, James. Yeah. You know, and so like
he's a pharmacist.
Yeah. Good job, James. He's kind of in our community a little bit in the keto world. But yeah, like it's getting outside of your normal realm, being curious, being a seeker, like that's how you get over limiting mindsets because you see what's possible. You learn how other people think that you don't think. Even social media, if you follow the right kind of people, can change your world. Like I love the holistic psychologist, you know, like she's like for free on the internet. I learned so much about like childhood patterns. Thank you. You know, and so if you're careful with those things, if you're open, like we learn from each other, we grow and expand together. And the more we can get outside of our normal little rut and see how other people think, it opens things up for us, you know?
So. Oh, absolutely. So I know you're passionate about regenerative agriculture and you've done work before with regenerative ranchers and now you're here on a regenerative vegetable farm. Can you tell us kind of why regenerative is important to you and kind of your experience with that so far?
Yeah, so when I was going through my dark night of the soul, I spent a lot of time in nature, in the mountains in Utah where I live, and a lot of time in silence. And just, it was so healing to me. I'm so like forever grateful. It makes me want to cry even talking about it. It was just so many things that I needed came to me intuitively in nature. And so I feel grateful and protective over her. Like, it's just like, even today I went for a hike in the little area you told me to go.
Yeah. Oh, good.
And I just was like, thank you, like, thank you for this experience. It was so beautiful. There's flowers growing everywhere. It was like cool and shaded, or everywhere else it was kind of hot. And it was just so beautiful. And I'm just so grateful for the abundance that I'm so grateful for this life experience and all the abundance that the earth provides us. I'm like, it would be, in my opinion, very ungrateful of me to just not care about giving back like a little bit. And it's also selfish because every time I give back, I just like get tons more from the earth, but it's like, it's a mindset, I think, is like, hey, I notice and I appreciate this and this and this, like, thank you, the air, the atmosphere, like all of it. And so for me, that was already kind of in place, and I was already a health nut. And then I ran into some regenerative ranchers at a paleo conference, and I just, how some things, they just land. It was just like, I kind of don't care about anything else at this conference. What are you guys talking about? What is regenerative agriculture? Who? Alan Savory has a TED Talk. Who? I mean, as soon as I got home, it was like rabbit hole, rabbit hole, rabbit hole, And so, because the reason I care is because I'm already passionate about human health, because I know how much it can change someone's life. I'm living proof of that, like radically changed my life, getting healthy. And then on top of it, I'm so grateful for this earth experience, for this planet. And like, the least I can do is try to give back a little bit for future generations, for my kids and their kids and their kids and their kids, of like, hey, let's not like mess this whole place up and push it into ruin, So anything that helps people or the planet, I'm into that, and especially when it has to do with food. So yeah.
And that totally leads into like my final question is, our podcast is called Farming for Health. And when you think of farming for health, what does that look like to you?
This.
Yeah, right?
I told Bob earlier, I'm like, thank you for doing this so I don't have to be a farmer. That's how I really feel. Because like, I kind of got my own business. I can't imagine trying to take this on top of my normal life and my kids and sports. I'm like, there's no way I can't become a farmer. I mean, I could, but I don't want to. Maybe not, maybe someday. But I just am grateful. Like, this is beyond my wildest dreams. Like, wow, I really made it as a gardener or farmer. Like, this is so, it's like, it's the TLC of a private backyard passionate plant grower in a large format. That is 100% how I would put it. It's like, look how much care goes into these, and we picked these varieties out of these 30 that we tried because they were the best. It's that kind of care. And so when that happens, when the soil is better, the plant is better, the plants become better and we become better, and I know you know a ton about that. That's your forte, but that's why I care, because it's everything gets better with health. The soil, when the soil is better, all the ecosystems are better. When it's just, everything gets better when it's healthy. And so the fact that you guys care about that and are farming in that way, that's why I like lost my mind when I met you. I'm like, a regenerative farmer. I have been looking for you, because yes, I can go to my farmer's market, and I do, but they have very limited selections, and sometimes they're not even there, and it's hard to find. So just appreciate you guys and what you're doing to contribute to the health of the planet and people.
Oh, so where can we find you online?
So my website is taragarrison.com. It's TARA, and that links up to pretty much everything. My biggest social media platforms are Instagram and TikTok, and it's Coach Tara Garrison pretty much across the board on everything. I do have a podcast called the Inside Out Health Podcast, and I just toured all over today. So I hope you guys will check that out if you want to see inside the farm and hear from Bob and so many of these guys. I also have another episode with Amy. So Inside Out Health Podcast. And then my book is on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, and it's Short-Term Keto.
Oh my gosh. I can't recommend everything about you any more than I already do. It's amazing. And I highly recommend looking at your Instagram. I think it is so motivating. And like, the things you post are awesome. So
thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Farming for Health. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. Connect with Farmer Lee Jones and I on Instagram and Facebook.